Today I'm interviewing Ron Badock, who was a member of the 2nd 4th Machine Gun Battalion, captured on Singapore, went to the Burma-Thailand Railway and finally ended up at the end of the war in Saigon. But I think it's best that I now leave it for Ron to tell us the sequence of events that involved his time as a prisoner of war. Ron, can I say how much I appreciate your agreeing to this interview today, and I'm just going to take this out a little bit to get you into the frame nicely. That's good. Can you tell me where you were born and where you went to school?
Born in Kalgoorlie, went to school in Kalgoorlie.
Right. And where were you when you enlisted into the AIF?
In Norseman.
Norseman, right.
Yeah, they had a recruiting mob went through about June or July from Coolgardie to Esperance, and then when we were called up, we weren't called up until October, and by that time a lot of the fellows had drifted off to their own places. But anyhow, they picked all the recruits up from Esperance to Coolgardie, with a few exceptions. Was Jack Sanderson, Lou Daly, Leo Walsh, and Frank Brackelman.
Yes.
And that was the only four. We went down to Claremont, was the main recruiting place then.
Yep.
And we're there for a few days to get some shots and that sort of thing, and then they took us across to Ascot Racecourse, and there they finished up course of needles and all that sort of thing, and then we went up to Northern.
Yes.
And when we got to Northern, running the RTD for a matter of days, when they called for volunteers for the 2nd 4th.
Yes.
And so that was how a lot of us finished up in the 2nd 4th, because quite a large group went through at that time.
Now I need to ask you something about this. When you were in Northern, were you involved in the Ankertel march from Northern to the city?
I didn't miss a march at all, anywhere.
Yes.
Oh yes, it's in that.
That was a long march.
Well, it was, yet it was over a period though.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, as a matter of fact, just in the course of training, the weekend that the battalion was in camp, it always took us on a route march, and they got steady bigger. So one time there, later in the piece, from Woodside we went around, we got to near a place called Cuddly Creek, and then he took off across country, and a very hilly country, and altogether that day we did about 40 miles, because we went through, we got to Waterfall Gully, I think, that we had a feed, and then back to Woodside by road.
Yes.
And I worked out it was the best part of 40 miles.
Now you've moved us over to Woodside. How did you move from Northern to Woodside? Did you go by boat or by train?
Yeah, it was only a bright spot in our history.
Yes.
Yeah, the advance party went by train.
Yes.
And then the rest of us travelled first class on the Duntroon.
Right.
Very good.
Yeah. Now after your training in Woodside, you were moved to Darwin.
Yeah, well, the battalion was moved to Darwin, but as our usual luck, B Company got split up and went down to Adelaide River. Now, from what I can make of it, the main thing, that was where the bad boys' camp was, at Adelaide River, and they had a group that was guarding them through the day, nearly all sergeants, and then night time the 2nd 4th took. I reckon they fell for the 3-card trick there.
Yes. Yeah.
But anyhow, that was it. And there's one of our fellas, Joe Meredith, and he was a bloody rascal. He was in that camp when we were guarding it. And so it was, we did the night shift, they did the day shift. The rest of the time, I think, they were trundling 44-gallon drums around was about the only reason I could see that we were sent down there.
Yes. Now, with your move to Darwin, part of it was by train, by rail, and then...
No, by vehicles, trucks.
Yes, all the way.
Yeah, I think it's about 80 miles, I think, from roughly. And we got back there, whatever the date was, I couldn't tell. It was near enough to the new year. And we were just there, from what I remember, overnight before we got on the boat. And
is this in Darwin?
we were on the, from Darwin.
And was that the Marilla, was it? Or?
Yeah, we were on the Marilla, and there's other parts of the battalion were on the Australia.
Yes.
And then, of course, we went across and transshipped into the
Aquitania,
yeah.
in Port Moresby.
Yeah.
Now, shall
I
we...
left there in a hurry.
Yeah. So that was fairly... was it in the last weeks of 1941, or was it already...
Oh, I wouldn't...
It was around that time.
Yeah, it would have been, yeah.
Around that time.
Yeah.
Do you remember where you had Christmas that year?
I think we were still down at Adelaide River, I think.
Really?
And
Okay.
Just before the new year.
Yes. So you go around to Perth, did round to Fremantle on you, and you didn't know where you were going.
Yeah. Well,
You didn't know you were going to Singapore, did you?
No, but when we got on at Port Moresby,
Yes.
we thought to go direct to Singapore, but then
Yeah.
the crew said no. Sydney's our next stop because we had to leave there.
Really? Yeah.
And so it went on. It went all the way around there. Now, I think it was about the 24th of January that we got up to Singapore.
Yes, in the Sunda Strait, in the Sunda Straits. Was it?
Yeah, changed ships at Sunda Straits, which has become quite a well-known name because of the Perth section there.
Yes.
Going down.
So you're there on the 24th of January, and you would already know that the Japs have already landed in northern Malaya.
They were well down the Malayan Peninsula. But it just shows you bloody how hopeless it was. When we were out, we were in a camp near the naval base in Singapore.
Near Keppel Harbour, was it? Near Keppel Harbour.
No, we were up near the north, up near those oil tanks and the naval base.
Yes, no, I know where you mean.
But then when we went to actual position, that's when we went to woodlands just to the left of the causeway.
Yes, yes.
And firing fixed lines across the water to about where they were. Well, they hoped they were on a straight line. So we would train, our guns trained just off the point there.
Now, who were your company officers?
Well, Tom Bunning was the OC.
Yes.
Smith Ryan, or what you called Smash Ryan.
Yes.
He was 2IC. Well, that was about all the... then the platoon commanders, I think there was Saggers with A Company, Bunning with B Company, I think Jack Thompson, no, Colin Cameron was OC C Company, and what's his name, he's a major, Gee, no, his name was running. Just would come to me.
It'll come, yeah. Just, you did mention Colin Cameron.
Yeah.
What sort of an officer did you consider
Well,
him to be?
from my or our point of view, he's quite a good bloke.
Yes, yeah. Yeah.
Quite a good bloke. Koff was the Major Koff was the OC Don Company.
Yeah. Now Saggers was later taken away and commanded the special battalion, didn't he?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I said it was a battalion, but I think it was mainly a company. In our ken, it was referred to as E Company.
Yeah, but he ended up with all these odd people. He ended up with service corps people. He had very few infantry people under his command, as I understand. But that we won't worry about that. We'll get that in another
But he was
time.
very cut up about not getting leave in Fremantle because he could see his house from the boat.
Well, I would feel like that too.
Oh, I think everybody would.
Yeah.
And obviously ours did too.
Yeah.
We're like rats leaving a ship,
Yeah.
leaving a sinking ship.
But you still had about 100 of your guys that went over the side and shot through, didn't they?
Yeah, well, I was amongst them, but it was only a few that got left behind. And
Yes.
it was, they talk about MPs, but there was a group of them were walking down Fremantle Street, down the main road, I think, and a military truck pulled up.
Yeah.
They said, "Hey mate, how about running us down to the wharf, catch a ship?" "Yeah, jump in." Went round to the bloody jail.
Yeah.
And they were the blokes who got left behind.
Yeah, ended up in Java.
It was pretty crook.
Yes. Now, I imagine that when you arrived in Singapore, the place was hectic amount of activity, was there? Or?
What was that?
When you arrived in Singapore, because the Japs had already landed in northern Malaya, that there must have been a lot of activity going on in Singapore.
Well, of course, we didn't see much of it. We were taken from the wharf across to the train, then we did a certain run on the train.
Yes.
And then the old heel and toe from then on.
Yes, yeah.
So, really, we didn't see much of Singapore at all then.
Yes, yeah.
And even when we got into our Woodlands way, we didn't even know which way Singapore was.
No.
And yet we sat on our bums for a week and did nothing.
Yeah. Now, were you a machine gunner?
Yeah.
What was the main machine gun that you were issued with?
Oh, Vickers.
There was a Vickers?
Yeah.
And what was your position on it?
Number one.
You're the number one, behind the gun and aiming it.
Yeah, there was Lou Daly was the number one, Tiny Gray, myself and Jack Wheelock I think was number one gunners.
Yes, yeah.
But of course Leslie, my number two, he was one that got jailed, so he didn't make it, and so Leo Walsh I knew quite well, and he was a locksmith. For Sandover, their Chubbs man. He finished up number two, and we retreated out of Mandai, and then we were called back into it again, and we hadn't been back long, and we had a runaway gun. But about that time they called for swinging Travis, and anyhow the lock has had a habit of doing, she just ran, well, that was all right, could just go with a swinging Travis without the trigger sort of thing.
Yes.
And in the meantime, Leo Walsh was sitting there repairing the lock.
Yes.
But then it was all to no avail, because when we retreated from there and got all our gear in the truck, and of course couldn't get out, and then they tried to destroy the truck, and so the Japs would have finished up with all that, all our personal gear and guns and that sort of thing. 8 platoons guns, of course.
Now, did your gun crew fire on the Japs coming across the Johor Straits at any time?
Or only fixed lines.
Did you?
Yeah,
so
you couldn't see them.
No, no.
But they were just given the coordinates and
Yes.
and instructions, and so that was it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think we knocked off all our ammunition. But I won't. You know a bit about Vickers, do you?
Yes.
You know the belts and inner box.
The belts. I was going to ask you whether. Yeah.
Well, one of our officers, I won't mention his name, but Jack Sanderson had been transferred from 8 platoon to 9 platoon as a sergeant.
Oh.
And because he's a pretty good bloke and quite intelligent, Sandy. It brings back memories because I was mucking around with the 3 from Kalgoorlie, because Frank Brackelman went to Don Company, so the other 3 came to B Company, and I used to go and leave with Jack Sanderson, Lou Daly and Leo, and so knew them quite well. Jack Sanderson was the outback traveller for Sandovers, or Harris Scarf and Sandovers at that time. And his run was from Walloona to Esperance. Periodically, not all the time, you go up to Menzies and those places and so on, but that was his forte. So he had his car pretty well. He had a little refrigerator before there was refrigerators, I think, in his boot.
Right, let's get back to the Japanese invasion. Where were you actually when the surrender took place?
In the perimeter around Singapore.
Were you? Oh, you were right back that far.
Oh, yeah. Well, they regrouped and put us in position after we came from Mandai back to the Botanic Gardens, and that was evidently where the battalion was stationed. We didn't go far to where the perimeter was. Well, I think that was only face saving, I think, anyhow. They'd have just walked through us.
So how did you get from where you surrendered or where you assembled out to Selarang Barracks?
Walked
all the way. Now, were you part of the party that were forced to stand on the side of the road and watch the Japs come through with their tanks at any time? No. So how long, when you were in Singapore after being captured and before you were sent to Thailand, what work did you do, or where did the Japs make you work?
Well, as I say, we were over in Johor building this memorial.
Yes.
Then we went back to Adam Park and we worked on the golf course. Now they make that a feature, and they built just off there they built a
like a memorial.
Temple, I suppose. A temple.
Yes, I was going to say, I said a memorial, but temple or memorial.
I suppose it was a memorial.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Yes.
But
and which other
it wasn't bad, but we didn't think it was too good at the time. But when I look back, it wasn't bad at all.
Yes. Now there was. in my own mind, I get a bit confused. Was there an Alf Koff?
Yeah.
And there was Major Goff.
No, Alf Koff was the major.
Oh, Alf Koff was the major, and there was another person by the name of Goff, wasn't there?
Tommy Goff.
Tommy Goff lived in Leaderville till recently. Yeah. Okay.
I think he was born in the house that he died in, I think.
Yeah. So Major Koff. Was he a good officer?
Oh, he looked after his men better than anybody else, I think.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, he wasn't hidebound by regulations.
Yes, yeah.
At times he'd go on a route march and he'd give them 10 minutes in the boozer or something like that, which none of the other officers would.
Yeah. Well,
but I think he was, well, of course, he finished up when Mick got bowled over. He finished up 2 IC then.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah.
Green took over, and
Major Green took over.
and Alfcoff went as his 2 IC.
Yes, yeah. Okay, now between the time that you're out at Celerang, where were you on Singapore Island until you were chosen to go to Thailand with D-Force?
I would have been back at Celerang, I'd imagine.
Most of the time.
Yeah. Because that's about.
Were you there when they required everyone to sign the non-escape?
Yeah, we were in Adam Park at that time.
Were you?
Yeah.
And did they, just sort of hold the gun at your head and you had to sign it? And
yeah, well, of course, we were at that. That's what brought up the Changi Square incident.
yes.
They put all the blokes, as you probably know, brought everybody back, and they.
Well, they put about 15,000 people in there, didn't they?
That's right.
And it was in the old.
That's what they could carry.
Yeah, it was in the old Gordon's barracks, wasn't it?
Probably would be.
Yeah. Now, do you remember when you were chosen to go with? How were you chosen to go to Thailand with D-Force?
By default, I suppose.
yeah.
Unlucky. Yeah. Well, of course, at that time you'd be looking forward to a change.
Yes.
To get away from our routine, but it wasn't luxurious travel because the iron, made of iron, and most of the time they kept the doors closed, but they got very, very hot.
Yeah, these were the carriages that they put you in.
Yeah, well, they're actually goods vans.
Yes. Do you got an idea how long? Were they 20 feet long?
I don't know, but I think there was about a platoon jammed into them.
So you put about 30 men in each one of them. Yeah. Do you remember who was in charge of your group?
No, I just can't think who was our sergeant then.
Yeah. Were there any Japs in with you? Was there a Jap guard in with you?
Well, yes and no. They appeared and they closed the doors and that sort of thing. But they really didn't worry us as far as that's concerned.
How did you attend to your ablutions while you're on?
When you could.
Yes.
Well, there wasn't any ablutions except when they pulled in, the train pulled in, it was filling up with water and so on.
Yes.
If you're lucky, you could get under that. They'd leave it going and you'd get in. And
This is under the hose that fills the steam engine with water.
Yeah.
Did you manage to get a shower under that?
Yeah. And that was all that we had. And if you wanted a bog or anything, well, you did the best you could.
Well,
of course, fortunately at that stage we hadn't struck all the dysentery, otherwise it would have been bloody terrible.
Yes, yeah.
Or a lot worse anyhow.
And I don't suppose you were getting too much food either anyway.
Well, it was pretty light on going up to Thailand.
Do you remember being in Kuala Lumpur railway station?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, did you manage to get to a toilet there, or did you just have to go?
If there was, we didn't know about it.
No. Okay, now
because you could really say, like, the Japs made no provision for it at all.
No. All right. Now, there's 30 of you crammed in this goods wagon.
Yeah.
How did someone organise some to stand, some to sit, some to lie?
Oh yeah, and if you get your turn near the door, which the Japs are allowed to be open when you was going.
Yes.
Because of that you get a breeze there, but didn't get any other part of the van. Yeah, it was really a goods van,
yes.
A goods wagon.
Yes.
Because I forget where it was, somewhere there where they had a layer of rice on the floor, and they had bloody weevil and they come out and bite you.
Yes, yeah.
You know, just...
Yeah. Now, do you remember arriving in Bampong? When you arrived in Thailand at your terminus up there?
Well,
Yeah.
What? Yeah, Ban Pong. We weren't there that long on our way up, but then when we were well enough, they moved us out of Chungkai to Badock.
Yeah, but we're still going up to the railway.
Oh yeah.
You know, so you're Ban Pong. Did you go from Ban Pong up to say Kanchanaburi as you were going north?
Yeah, all that.
Did you go by train or did you walk or did you trucked or what?
We went by train by part of the way and
Yes.
walked the rest.
Yes.
Because I remember, I think it was Hintock, they had running water. Some engineer had made this system from a stream up in the hill through bamboo, and that you could get a shower.
Yeah, well that's where...
We thought that was bloody great.
Yeah, well that was Dunlop Force had set that up.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh,
and it was a Major Woods that...
he was the engineer, was he?
I think he was Corps of Engineers, yeah.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. And he...
No, I didn't know that.
He tapped into a creek and ran the... reticulated the water. Okay, so you marched all the way past there, and you were with... Which of the battalions of D Force were you with?
Oh, well...
Who was the major who was in charge?
I can't remember that.
No.
Should remember it.
Oh, well, you might come back in a moment.
But, yeah.
So you marched through... Where was the first place that you started, the Japs put you to work?
Put you to work?
Yeah, where did they put you personally to work? On the railway?
Oh, on the railway?
Yeah.
Within a day or so, I'd say.
Yes, but where? Were you past where this point where Dunlop was?
We were left in Canberra for a while, and we were on maintenance of the line.
That was when you linked up with Captain Harris, was it?
Well, that would be, yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
What our job there was mainly night shift, was getting all the gravel and stuff out of the river and putting in trucks, and then they'd use that for ballast.
Really? Yeah.
And some of us would probably go out with that lot and reballast where it was required.
Yes.
We didn't have to make the decisions. The Japs would have foresealed it. They were no trouble then neither.
So this is at Kanchanaburi?
Yeah.
And you were how did you get this sort of gravelly soil out of the river?
Oh, just...
In baskets or what?
Yeah, there were baskets and chunkles sort of thing.
Yes, yeah.
Never saw too many shovels, but it's all the chunkle, you know. Like
yes.
The natives used it for everything.
Yes.
All digging and that sort of thing.
So how long did you stay in Kanchanaburi doing that work?
Oh, 2 or 3 weeks, I suppose.
Yes. And then how did they move you further north from there?
Well, I think I'm not sure about that, but, well, we didn't walk, but it would have been by truck, I think.
Yes. Do you remember crossing a river at any time?
No, there was about 3 different bridges, I believe, was built across there, but no, I don't really remember crossing the river.
All right, so now you're still with Harris's party? Did you?
Well, there wasn't a Harris's party at that stage.
No.
That we knew of.
No.
And it wasn't until Kinsaya that we really met up. He was known as Horsey Harris.
Yes, yeah.
And
he wasn't a 2nd, 4th machine gunner, was he? He was another corps, yeah.
But he wasn't a bad sort of fellow either.
Yeah.
Took a lot of ruffling.
Yes. So you're in Kinsaya, or Kinsayo as you pronounce it, which is the proper pronunciation. You became ill there, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was pretty crook, but then was only within or within a week I'd say that I was moved down to Chungkai.
Yes, yes.
And I was mucking with Lloyd Haddon, and he was fit enough, and they, I think under Harris, they moved north, further upward. I don't know what.
But you didn't go with them, did you?
No.
Now,
No, by that time I would have been in Chungkai.
now, when you said you were not well when you were in Kinsao, there wouldn't have been an Australian hospital then, so you must have been in a British hospital, were you?
Well, I was in a hospital.
Hospital hut or RAP or medical hut?
It was just one of the huts, and when you with that crook you couldn't give a bugger, and it was a pretty low ebb.
But you told me that there was a doctor there that you remember his name.
Butterworth.
Butterworth, yeah, and he was a Pommy.
Yeah, well, he's a Scot, really.
A Scot,
The Scot would point that out anyhow. No,
yeah.
I'm not a bloody Pommy, I'm a Scot.
Right. Now, because of your illness, you were shifted from there down to Chungkai. Now, you earlier told me that you didn't remember going down by barge, but we both know that Murray Ewan in his research has identified that you did go down by barge.
Yeah, well, I probably didn't know much about things then anyhow.
No, well, I think that's perfectly understandable.
Yeah.
Now, when you're in Chungkai, do you remember there were very few Australian doctors in that camp? That was almost...
Didn't know of any.
No, none. But I did ask, do you remember a very well-known doctor who was in that area by the name of Captain Jacob Markovich? Or
I heard of him.
yeah, you never saw him?
No.
Yeah.
No, not personally.
Yeah, no, he was a Canadian actually.
Yeah, I believe so.
Who just got
we
got caught up in the things.
We didn't see Dunlop or even hear about him.
No.
Until after we got home.
Yeah. Did you have around this time, but before you were chosen to be on a Japan party, did you have any contact with any Australian doctors at all?
No.
No. All right. Now, when you're in Chungkai, it's only 6 kilometres away from the bridge over the River Kwai.
Yeah.
Did you at any time? Did you ever cross that, either on a train or?
Would have.
Yes.
On the way home.
Yes. Yeah.
There was one of them. I believe there was 3 or 4 of them altogether.
Yes.
First one was bamboo, and then it gradually up to the steel one, and then of course, I don't think the steel one was used too much before they bombed it.
Well, it was blown away in 1945. Yes. Yeah. Were you ever in a camp called Tamwang? Tamawang, yeah. No. Did you ever know where Claude Anderson was Claude was only eventually only about 10 kilometres from where you were.
No. Well, it might have been 100 miles away for all the communication that went on,
Yeah.
Some of them were quite close together, but you didn't know anything about them.
Did you get good treatment in Chungkai?
Oh yeah, we didn't see any, well, we only saw Jap guards and that, but purely under our own administration. And Chungkai wasn't a bad camp at all, except that most of the blokes were, well, they were all pretty crook when they went there, then most of them recovered, and I think that's where the party that went to non-Badock was formed, which could have been Harris's, I don't know.
Yes, yeah. So when did you recover your health while you were there? Did your health improve while you were in Chungkai?
Yeah, markedly.
Now, did you know at any time that they had chosen you to go on a Japan party, or did you have no idea where they were sending you at any time?
No, except by hearsay that we were following a pattern. You had to finish up in certain camps along the way, and then on a boat bound for Japan, because they're nearly all going to Japan at that stage.
Yes.
But
well, you were shifted back to, we're probably in 1944 now, and you were shifted back into, well, no, I'm going too far ahead. Do you remember when you became aware that the railway had been finished?
About when it was finished, pretty early.
Yeah, late in 43.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then in 44 you were shifted back to Singapore, is that right?
Yeah, that'll be right.
How did you go down to Singapore?
Well, as far as I know, by train.
Okay. Well,
from non-Black, well, of course,
yeah,
that was virtually on the railway line.
Yes, yeah. Now that, obviously you don't remember it, but I was just going to ask you if you had recalled it, whether it was a better return trip and more comfortable than when you came up.
Not much, I don't think.
No, there wouldn't be much in it. Do you remember actually when you got down to the bottom end of Malaya and you were going on to Singapore, do you remember going over the causeway in the train?
No.
No. When you went back to Singapore, which camps did you go into?
River Valley Road.
River Valley Road?
Well, that was part of the staging.
Yes.
I imagine.
Yeah.
But while we were there, we worked on the wharf.
Yes, yeah. Did you manage to steal some bits and pieces for your own
Wharf
comfort?
couldn't be in that sort of thing.
No? You're too much integrity.
But, you know, there were some funny incidents. The Japs there, if they caught a fella, or who they caught, with contraband on, they'd make them eat it.
Yes.
And in this group that I was with was a few members of MAC.
That was convoy.
Olds and bolds.
Yeah, they were old guys. They were around 40 years of age, weren't they?
Really old, yeah.
Yeah.
And Scotty Murray, he didn't have too many teeth, and he was caught with soap. So he's eating soap, and he's offsider Andy Welfare. He got a bag of Kanchanaburi, you know, the little hard, well, like a pill, little hard, you know, you stew them up, a pea,
Yes, yeah.
And here he is with no teeth and trying to get rid of these things, you know.
Yeah.
Of course, it wasn't too funny for him, I might add, but
No.
the rest of us saw the funny side of it.
Yeah. So you're working on the wharves there and living in River Valley Road.
Yeah.
Did you know that they were intending to take you to Japan at that stage? No.
Didn't have a clue. Not until we sort of found out what others had done and they followed this pattern. We thought, oh well, and when we got on the boat we thought it'd be for Japan, but we believe whether it's right or wrong, I don't know. But lost the thread there.
Well, we're talking about you getting to Japan and whether you knew you were going.
As we learned later that they were going to Japan, but they're losing too many ships, and so they pulled into Saigon. But an interesting part about coming into Saigon, there's a town called or a place called Cape St. Jacques.
Cape St. Jacques, yeah.
And we're approaching that, and then we see a myriad of ships sitting on the path under their superstructure and masts above water.
So they'd sunk. They were sunk, were they?
Yeah, well, the POMs in the camp were saying, yeah, well, they were working on the aerodrome, and they were, they parking planes, and they were building blast walls around them, and interspersed in that there was dummies. Well, they said the planes came over roughly about 8 o'clock in the morning. The first thing they did was to go and bomb all the planes, and virtually no dummies. so they had good information there. And then that's what they said. They cleaned up and bombed the aerodrome, and then started on the shipping.
Yes.
Something like 180 ships that they got. They were from there, Kanchanaburi or the China Sea, right up the Gulf to going up to Bangkok way.
Now we're getting we've got to race a little bit ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
When you left Singapore, what was the name of the vessel that you left Singapore on?
Well, it was the boat.
The boat, B-O-T-H.
Yeah.
The boat.
We didn't know it at the time, but that's what it turned out to be.
What sort of a vessel was it? Was it an old one or?
Usual old coaster.
Yes, yeah. And when you left, were you part of a convoy?
Yeah.
So what on your passage going north, what happened to the convoy?
Well, as I said before, this night, every night you'd get all the sparks and cinders coming out the funnel.
Yes.
We'd be going crook, but we later on thought, well, that must have been a signal. So don't hit me, I'm a POW boat. So that was all we could put it down to. Because, as I say, once after this night, and when dawn broke, there was only our own ship and the Jap gunboat that was on surface.
Yeah, so the others had been sunk.
We don't know where they went.
The others were
We
sunk.
presumed the others went to the bottom.
Okay. Now,
but I don't think that there was any POWs on them.
Yes. But you go into Saigon or Cape St. Jacques.
Yeah, then up the river.
And
even up the river, there's boats up in the paddy fields and everywhere,
Yes, yeah.
We've got 180 ships, it's a lot of ships.
Yes. Any idea how many people would have been on your boat?
Oh, no.
Just hundreds, just picking hundreds, 200 or 300 or?
Oh, that'll be at the most.
Was it, yeah? And where were you sleeping? Or were you
on deck.
On the deck?
Yeah, which suited us, except for the cinders.
Yeah.
On deck, and they'd put a layer of raw rubber, in the big bales.
Yes, yeah.
But of course, with all the weight, they finished up all sizes and shapes.
Yes.
But we were a lot better off being on deck than we were down below.
Yes, yeah. And when you arrived up there, where did they put you? Where did they accommodate you in Saigon?
What they call go-downs in Singapore, I suppose the same name there.
Yes.
Which was
the warehouse type things.
Yeah. Some huts, like the usual hut, Badock hut.
Yes.
Or in the go-downs, but there had been English in them before.
Yes, yeah.
Because I don't know what happened to them, they just mooched off somewhere.
Yeah. And now you did tell me earlier, before we started recording, that you were forced by the Japanese to work on the airfields, and you briefly mentioned it a little while ago. How far away from sort of central Saigon, or where you were accommodated, was this airfield?
Oh, it wasn't a hell of a long way.
Did you walk there every day?
The one in Indochina was up near a place called Dalat, which didn't go in there, but evidently it's a bit of a hills resort. The locals used to go up there to escape the heat in the really hot summer.
So were you building the airfield at Dalat?
No, at a place called Kang, which was perhaps, at a rough guess, perhaps 10 k's or 10 miles away from Dalat.
Oh, right. So you're a long way out of Saigon.
Oh, yeah.
And what were your conditions like up there?
Not too bad.
Was it better than when you were on the railway?
Oh yeah, there was not so much hassle with that. Well, what happened there, as I said, we were in Kanchanaburi, we were shoveling, you know, the water wash for the ballast, and up there we were getting the rocks out of the river and getting them onto the bank, and then the locals would load them onto carts, and then they'd go, I suppose it'd be about a mile in where the strip was being built, and then they had the women there laying the rocks.
Yes.
So that was about the only job was there if you worked. As usual, of course, there wasn't over much tucker, but a strange thing there that we thought was pretty strange. Two of our blokes, one second, fourth and an eastern stater, Sydney bloke who was a bloody rascal, they'd evidently found out that a hut on the Japanese side of the fence contained Red Cross stuff.
Yeah.
And they used to go and knock it off.
Yeah.
Well, of course, they went to the well too often and they got lumbered. Well, they got beaten up a bit and roped and
Ron, the camera was overheating. We had to stop for a little while.
oh yeah,
It's unfortunate. You'll notice from the last couple of frames that our camera was misbehaving, and I had to terminate the interview with Ron, and now I'm just adding a conclusion, and hopefully Ron will grant me the indulgence of another interview at a future date, and I'll probably have to buy a new camera for that. But just to finalise, when the war was over, Ron was still in Saigon, and he was moved by air from Saigon through Bangkok and down to Singapore. From Singapore he then boarded the vessel, the Highland Chieftain, and he was moved to Sydney, from Singapore to Sydney, then by rail from Sydney to Adelaide, and finally he returned to Perth by air, and he was finally discharged from the army in February 1946, and that'll conclude this attempt at recording Ron's POW history.